Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. You know me, I'm not that keen on the Kingianum type, but when you do get a spike and most of the blooms are open, I might have to change my mind. They are quite attractive, and I'm squashed up against the shelves here so that I can get that shot with the darker background, because those are very delicate colours. But yeah, I might have to change my mind. I'm still in two minds whether to keep that. It's a beast of a plant. I could get 6 small orchids in that hanging space. So I've got all that space taken up for, you know, a couple of quite small spikes relative to the plant size. Anyway, while I was squashed up against the shelves, the fragrance from that today is pretty good, which, given that there's no sun, I'm quite pleased. And coming soon. They're nearly open, they're starting. That prima donna up there now is open. Let's see if I can get in quite close. These again are delicate colours, and that's against the light, so it's probably going to look a little washed out, I suppose. But that's my favourite nobly, and not by a little bit, by a lot. And it just blooms for months and months and months. It has a flush now, just starting, and there's buds that are only just breaking from the canes now. You know, they're a long way off opening. So, you know, as these fade, others will take their place. It'll be in bloom for months and months. It's one of my star performers. I love it. But this video today is not supposed to be about blooms. Excuse me wobbling around. My strap slipped. I mean the strap on the camera. Right, today I'm going to do a little experiment. I don't do these very often. I just use other people's, which is cheating a bit. But basically, I'm coming up to the point, less than 2 weeks now to our show, and at that show I should get my big chunky bark. And at that point, we're less than a week away from March, and as we go into March, we reach the magic 11 hours, where all of these tropical orchids of original, you know, where their origins are, get back into a day length that they think is okay. So they'll grow. That's coming soon. But what I want to do is have a think. I'm going to switch to clay pots. I don't use them, and now I'm going to start. So I need to have a think about it. And there's been some talk about the downsides of clay pots. And I really see the point, and I think I know why. And this, I'm hoping, is going to prove it, one way or the other. At least for me. Not everybody can work the way I do, but this is what I'm going to do. I've got a clear jug here so we can see what's going on. I'm going to put exactly a litre of water in there, and that water will be RO water. Okay, let's do that. Now this is going to be fun, one-handed. I expect it will go everywhere. I'll explain why I want it exactly a litre in a minute. Oh, come on, I could wee faster than that. Obviously, when you're pouring out of a narrow socket, that liquid's got to be replaced by air, and if the liquid takes up the whole of the outlet, then the air can't get in, so it bloops. So come on, bloop up to the litre mark. This is not going to be exact, it's a rough idea. That looks like about a litre. Yeah, not a bad guess. Okay, and we're going to be scientific now. It's alright, the lid won't come off my TDS meter with one hand. There we go. It's playing ball now. Now, obviously that's RO water. Unless there's any contaminants in the jug, which there shouldn't be. That should come out at about 10, 12, something like that. Yeah, we are doing well today. That's 8. You probably can't see it, but basically that's a TDS reading of 8. That is virtually pure water. Right, 2 reasons for the experiment. That clay pot has been in the lounge since I got it. It is bone dry. There is no moisture left in that clay whatsoever. So part of the experiment, don't you dare flow over the top. There we go, it just covers the pot. Okay, now I hadn't thought of this, I'll think of it now. The idea is firstly to see how much water it soaks up. But the fact that I've put the pot in there, it's not on the litre mark now. So I'm going to leave this 24 hours, then take the pot out so that I get a true measure of how much water's been used. Give or take a tiny little bit because some's going to evaporate. This isn't real science. But the other thing I'm doing is I'm finding out what's in that clay. Now in 24 hours, any salts or anything like that that can show on a TDS meter should come out into that water and I can measure it again. So that's my idea. Give that 24 hours, so I'll come back again tomorrow and take the pot out. We'll see how much water it's soaked up in 24 hours. Reason to find out how much water it soaks up. I mean, this is Danny specific because of the way she grows and in her warm environment and everything. But she's had trouble, which I could get, so I'm trying to avoid it. I'm trying to think round it. Clay is very absorbent. It takes a lot of water in, and it dries quite quickly as a consequence. It evaporates out of the clay. So if you've got a clay media and a clay pot, and you water your media, any media touching that clay pot is going to immediately transfer that moisture straight into the pot, which will then evaporate almost immediately. So any roots that touch that part of the clay, either the pot or that media, you know, the roots might be wet because you've just watered them, but the clay is going to take that moisture straight out of the root. And if they're in contact, it could even suck the moisture out of the roots. And then you can get root tips dying on you. And it's not an obvious reason. You think, well, there's nothing wrong with my plant. All the roots in the pot are smashing. Why are these ones near the surface just going brown and dying? Well, the reason is they're getting the water sucked out of them because the clay is dry. So what I'm going to do with my Cattleyas when I get them in here, they're going to get watered the same way, same principle as I water my Vandas. There's a downside to this I'll come to in a minute, which I have already thought of and I haven't thought of a way around it yet. So what I'm going to do is put the water and feed if necessary in my glass bowl up to about the level of the top of the media, and then I'm going to stand the pot in it. So I'm not just watering the bark that they're going to be in, I'm watering the pot. And the pot's going to take in a hell of a lot of that water. And as a consequence, will dry much slower because the pot is soaking wet. It's not going to remain dry. And that's how I think I should avoid getting problems with roots that attach to the pot. That's theory number one. The downside is, if you've ever dropped a bit of bark in water, it floats. Think it through, yeah? You're just standing a pot full of bark in water. All the bark near the top's going to float away, isn't it? So, you know, obviously I've got to be very careful on the level. So what I'll probably do is stand the pot up to about 3/4 of its height in the water so that the bark can't float away, and leave that to soak for a little bit, get the pot soaking wet and get that bark nicely soaked. Then I can take the pot out and water the top of the media, which might still be dry, in my traditional way by pouring water through. Yeah? So that's how I'm hoping to get round this floaty bark problem. So we'll come back and have a look at this tomorrow, and the idea is to see how much water that pot's taken up. This is one of the small pots, you know, so it's not a huge amount of clay, but we'll see how much water it takes in, and we'll have a look at the TDS reading after 24 hours and see if there's anything that comes out of the clay. Now if there is, it's not a problem, it just means I have to pre-soak my pots for a while before I use them and just get them clean. It's not a big deal. Obviously I'm not going to soak them in tap water, I'd be putting more in than I take out. So it's got to be done in RO water to start with clean pots. And they will need flushing every now and again. Again, soak them in RO water, allow the, you know, salts or anything like that to transmit out into a larger volume of water. Sort of clean the clay, if you know what I mean. So we'll have a look at that again tomorrow, and you can predict the results if you like. But whether I get a much higher TDS reading is purely dependent on the type of clay that's been used. That's all it is. and any of the processing that might have been done to produce the pot, but it's more likely to be just where that clay came from. So we'll see what it's like tomorrow. Good fun, all good fun. Bye for now.